Hi friends, welcome to CORELIGHT'S Spiritual Weather Report for June 30th, 2024. I'm so happy to be with you again. This is Brad and I'm calling in today from London in the UK. I'm here for a few months because there is a foundation here, a very generous group of people who are supporting our work, and we're busy turning Leslie's and my book, The Marriage of Spirit, into a series of videos. It's a very inspiring and exciting project, and we're hoping to have something completed to share with you, to show you, maybe by early next year. So I'm going to keep you posted about it. And I also want to say I missed you last month. I'm so sorry we had to skip the May session because of my schedule, but I just couldn't fit it in, so I apologize. And I know it's only been a couple of months since we were together, but it just feels like lifetimes. I don't know about you, but I'm just amazed at how time continues to accelerate, doesn't it? I remember Leslie saying this 30 years ago, that it seemed like time was accelerating. And if you've been around that long, I'm sure you feel what I feel. It's like, it's incredible how time is moving so fast these days. But anyway, I can tell you it's been a very intense time energetically the last couple of months. I had an experience, and it was an inner experience of something very intense, and I'm going to talk about it today. I can only describe it as like a disturbance in the force is what I want to call it, and it was amazing. So I do want to share it with you. I know it's part of what we're supposed to talk about today. And I know many other people who've been feeling it as well. So before we begin our session today, I just wanted to welcome everyone who's new to CORELIGHT, and I also welcome all of our old friends too. And for those of you who might be new, every month I tune in on what's happening in the collective consciousness, and I'm always shown a few key themes to talk about on these calls. And this month there are 3 themes. They are, number 1, truth and love, the most powerful forces in the universe. Number 2, discerning and avoiding distractions. And number 3, what if your job were to live in joy? So for anybody who's new to the Spiritual Weather Report calls, I start by offering a guided meditation, and then we'll speak about the prevailing energies that are affecting us, and also about the spiritual principles that are most helpful for us right now. And then we'll have time at the end for questions and answers, and we always close with a brief prayer or guided meditation or whatever we have time for. And if you need to leave before the call ends, you can always listen to the recording later. We do send out the link to our email list, and it's also posted on YouTube as well as on our free resources page on corelight.org. So before we get started with our guided meditation, I just have a couple of things I want to mention, little updates for you. First, I have to say I am super, super excited finally that in May, we launched our new online course for the love of animals. I co-teach that course with Anna Breitenbach. We offered it a couple of years ago, and we've reloaded it on the website, so now it's available again. It was dark for 3 years. So after some delays, finally it's here. I'm super delighted to offer it to you. If you'd like to know more about the course, you can find it at corelight.org on our homepage. It's right near the top. And just in case, if you've been on these calls for a while, I know you know this, but if you're new and you don't know who Anna Breitenbach is, she is one of the most remarkable people I've ever met in my life. There's a movie that was made about her work called The Animal Communicator, and it went viral many years ago, and it's been viewed by many, many millions of people online. It was made by Craig Foster, who won the Oscar for his movie recently. It's on Netflix, called My Octopus Teacher. Came out a couple of years ago. And so I know many people who have seen that movie, but if you haven't seen it, I highly recommend it. And if you liked My Octopus Teacher, I highly recommend Craig Foster's new book. It's called Amphibious Soul. He was just here in London promoting it, and Anna took me to the event, and I got the book, and I was not able to put it down. I devoured it. It's sort of autobiographical, and he tells you more of the story of my octopus teacher. I also wanted to mention, in case you didn't get the email that we sent out recently, we revamped our interspecies communication page at CORELIGHT.org. And so there's a lot of free content there now. There's a free introductory webinar that Anna and I created for our course, For the Love of Animals. And there's the interview that we did together recently for Buddha at the Gas Pump, if you haven't seen that. And there are other things there too, including the Anna's movie that Craig made that went viral. So you can find all of that on our interspecies communication page under the tab called Sacred Activism at CORELIGHT.org. Lastly, before we do our guided meditation, I just want to mention we're also in the process of represencing one of Leslie's old courses that we've offered before, the 7 Portals of Spiritual Awakening. And so I invite you to please stay tuned for that one as well. We're hoping to announce it by email later this year, possibly September, October-ish. So I'm looking forward to getting that one, making that one available. It's a super, super powerful course. I know many of you on the call have already taken it. All right, without further ado, let's have our guided meditation. So I invite you now to pause and sit or lie down and just get comfortable. Close your eyes. Take a few long, slow, deep breaths. Just let go. With each exhale, feel yourself relaxing and letting go. And with each inhale, breathe in the light and the life force that surrounds your body. Exhaling any stress that the body might be holding on to. Breathing in the present moment and breathing out any concerns about the past or the future. Breathing in joy. And breathing out stress. Just letting go. Now I invite you to do a scan of your body from the top of your head all the way down to your fingertips and toes. Just relaxing all the muscles in the physical body. So I invite you to feel a warm wave of energy passing through your body, relaxing your scalp, flowing down, relaxing your facial muscles, your ears, the back of your head, neck, shoulders, jaw. Feeling this warm wave of beautiful energy just drifting down your body, sort of like a leaf falling from a tree, gently sweeping you clean of any tension. Feeling all the tension in your shoulder muscles melting away. All the muscles in your arms, all the way down to your wrists, hands and fingertips. Just feeling your entire torso, the upper body, deeply letting go. Upper back, lower back, chest, abdomen. And let's take a couple of long, slow, deep breaths. Breathing light in through the top of your head, breathing it all the way down to your diaphragm. Filling up your lungs, filling up your stomach, filling up your diaphragm with air, beautiful light, and releasing. Releasing any tension held in the upper body. Let's do another one of those long, slow, deep inhales, breathing light into the top of your head, feeling the light go all the way down to your pelvis, and then letting go. And feeling this warm, beautiful wave of energy passing through your pelvis, relaxing your psoas muscles, your buttocks, your genitals, all the tension in your midsection just melting away. Feeling all the muscles in your upper legs, knees, lower legs, ankles, feet, toes, just being washed away. And now I invite you to scan your body one more time from head to toes and fingertips while I'll go quiet for a moment and just check and see if you still have any tension in the body. And if you do, breathe some light into those areas. And exhale any tension that you might still be holding on to. Just feeling such deep peace descending into your body through the top of your head. Feeling completely relaxed, completely at peace. And I invite you now to put your attention on your root chakra, which is at the base of the spine. If you're new to this work and you don't know the root chakra, that's okay. You can just visualize and follow along and see what you feel. When we put our attention on the root chakra, the base of the spine, it naturally just relaxes and opens. And I invite you to drop your grounding cord from there down into the earth, all the way down to the center of the earth, wrapping your grounding cord around the core of the earth, feeling your connection with Gaia beneath your feet. Just feeling gravity gently pulling you towards the earth and relaxing into the embrace of Mother Earth, feeling her supporting you from beneath in the form of the floor and the chair. Just letting go. Deeply relaxing into the arms of Mother Earth like a little baby, being cradled by its mother, feeling very safe and held and nurtured by Mother Earth. And now I invite you to draw the earth energy from the core of the earth all the way up into the body through the soles of your feet. Feeling the earth energy coming up your legs, all the way up to the pelvis and all the way up the torso. Feel it moving up your core. The core is that part of your subtle body that runs right down the middle of your body, right in front of the spine. And just feel the earth energy moving up your core, up to the top of your head. And let's pause right there at the top of the head for a moment. And I just invite you to put your awareness on the core itself. Feel your core and visualize it all lit up. It's a luminous tube, golden white light, running right down the center of your body. So I invite you to just see it and feel it right now. And this is our core of enlightenment that is within each one of us. It's a beautiful, radiant core of light. It's very stabilizing. And now, as you hold that, continue to hold the core, and I invite you to open your crown chakra and send your core energy out the top of your head, out into the celestial realms. And the crown sits on the top of your head like a crown that a king or a queen would wear if you're new to this work. And you can feel it opening on the top of your head. It's called the 1,000-petaled lotus, and it opens up and out like a funnel above your head. Just feel it unfurling petal by petal. It's a beautiful feeling. If you're not feeling it, that's totally fine. You can just visualize and set the intention that you'd like to feel it, and one day you will. And so we're allowing the crown to open naturally, petal by petal, and we're sending the core energy out the top of the head into the celestial realms. And I invite you to allow your core energy to connect with a source of universal energy. And that can look like anything you want. It might be a spiral galaxy, or a group of celestial beings, ascended masters, or your own higher self. It's not a thinking exercise either. This is a feeling exercise. So just see where it goes. See what it connects to. It's a source of universal energy that feeds you with the highest form of light and love you can ever imagine. And so draw that energy back down into your body through the top of your head. I always find it's nice to visualize my guides, my spiritual guides, like a group of celestial beings with their hands on my head, sending the energy down into the body. This beautiful energy of light and love and healing energy into the body, filling you up with golden white light and love, unconditional love. Allow yourself to receive this beautiful golden white light, filling up your aura, filling up your body, all the way down to your fingertips and toes. So much that the light shoots out the tips of your fingers and the tips of your toes. Just filling up and filling up completely. As you do, become aware that you are now deeply connected to the center of the earth as well as to the heavenly realms. And this beautiful body that you're wearing is the center point between heaven and earth. Of course, you're not your body. You are the soul that inhabits the body. And so the body is the embodiment of the soul. The physical body is the marriage of spirit and matter. So it's nice to just, as you hang there suspended between heaven and earth, just feeling very free and weightless. Just allow yourself to take that in, that this beautiful physical body of yours is the marriage of spirit and matter, the center point between heaven and earth. And just allow the joy of that to soak in. The happy feeling knowing who you truly are, that you are the soul encased in this body, this physical body for a few years, on loan to us from Mother Earth. Such a beautiful gift, this body. So precious, a gift of life. On such an exquisite planet, at such an extraordinary time. So while you hold this space and continue to fill up with light, I'm going to say a little prayer and an invocation for our call today. We call on Great Spirit, Divine Mother, Father God, the Self that we all are. We invite in our highest guides and teachers and all the angels and beings who surround us in the highest love and support. We ask that you please fill us up today during this call with beautiful golden white light and love, and wrap us up in a cocoon of healing energy. Guide our conversation today into the highest love and the highest wisdom. And hold our hands as we walk out into the world, into our soul's highest purpose. We offer our deepest, deepest gratitude for this time that we get to share together today in the field of love. And if you might be listening to this podcast in the future, just realize that we're actually all one. There is no time and space at this level, so we are all in the field of love together, present time. And we may talk a lot. There's a lot of words spoken on these calls, but I invite you to feel the transmission of love and energy that comes through on these calls. Truthfully, I think the energy is the most important thing. It's a download of light and energy and love, and it's so much more than the words that are spoken. So I invite you to receive that and enjoy the beautiful field of love that we all share. So I thank you for joining. And while we're together here, before we close, let's say a prayer right now for our beloved Earth, Mother Earth. We send our love out to all of humanity and the rest of the natural world, Gaia herself. We send our love and our light and our healing energy with a blessing for the planet at this very, very challenging time, the turning point between the ages, when so many challenges are occurring. And we ask for a blessing for all beings, especially those who are suffering for any reason. War, ill health, poverty, sadness, spiritual poverty, hunger. All the brothers and sisters in the natural world, the waters of the earth, the mountains, forests, all life forms. We send our love and blessings. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you for all the love that we receive and the gift of this life. Alalaho. Alalaho, if you're new, means it's Tibetan, and it means, isn't it wonderful? It's their word for amen. So now I invite you to slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body. And when you feel ready, slowly begin to open your eyes. Wiggle your fingers and toes and stretch a little bit. So welcome again, everybody. I'm just so happy to be here with you. Before we begin with our first topic, I have a series of quotes I collected that I'd like to share with you. I collect quotes, and I pulled together a whole bunch of quotes on the topic of truth. It was very guided. It was part of our first topic for today about truth. So I'm going to read them to you. 3 things cannot be long hidden: the sun, the moon, and the truth. And that's Gautama Buddha who said that. An error does not become truth by reason of multiplied propagation, nor does the truth become error because nobody will see it. I'm going to read that again. An error does not become truth by reason of multiplied propagation, nor does the truth become error because nobody will see it. And that is Mahatma Gandhi. All truth passes through 3 stages. First, it's ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. Sorry. Third, it is accepted as being self-evident. I love that quote. I thought it was Gandhi, but it's somebody named Arthur Schopenhauer in the late 1700s, early 1800s. Sorry, Arthur, I never knew your name. I guess Gandhi must have paraphrased it from you. The next quote: the more a society drifts from the truth, the more it will hate those who speak it. And that's George Orwell. Got 2 more. People don't realize how hard it is to speak the truth to a world full of people that don't realize they're living a lie. That's Edward Snowden. And the last one: when I despair, I remember that all through history, the way of truth and love have always won. There may have been tyrants and murderers, and for a time they can seem invincible, but in the end, they always fail, or they always fall. Think of it. Always. And that's Mahatma Gandhi. So the first topic is the most powerful forces in the universe are truth and love. And I don't know about you, but to me, both seem to be in short supply these days. But then really when I sit and meditate on that, I ask myself, is that really true? And we're going to talk about that. And as I said at the very beginning of the call, I had a really challenging experience recently on the inner planes that I wanted to share with you today, because I know many people who are going through something similar. So I share this with you in the hopes that it's helpful. And if for any reason you feel this doesn't apply to you right now, I still invite you to take this in anyway, because you might experience something similar sometime soon, because these kinds of things do affect everybody. They're in the collective, and there's often a lag time with this. So it's hard to describe this experience in words, but the best way is to say that it was like a disturbance in the force. It was kind of like tectonic plates in the collective consciousness were shifting at some very, very deep, fundamental level. And when I came to that phrase, disturbance in the force, I was reminded where it comes from. Do you remember where it comes from? It's that it came from the original Star Wars movie in the 1970s, and it was when Obi-Wan Kenobi is suddenly overcome with this really intense feeling, and he has to sit down. And he clearly doesn't know what's happened, but he feels what he calls a disturbance in the force. And it turns out that he's feeling it because the evil empire used their Death Star, the technology of the Death Star, to blow up an entire planet. And so he says something like, it's like millions of voices cried out, and then they were suddenly silenced. And so for me, this was similar to that, but there was some very big differences. And one was that it wasn't just something negative happening. There was also something incredibly positive about it as well. It was both sides, both negative and positive, in this major energetic shift that I felt. And I guess if I had to put words to the feeling, I would describe it in a few pairs of opposites. And I wrote them down, so I want to read them to you. Disheartened and inspired. And see, I guess as I read them, see if you feel these in you. See if you're aware of these in your body. They are certainly up in the collective right now, so I would invite you to tune in and see if you can resonate with these. Disconsolate and uplifted. Hopeless and hopeful. Purposeless and purposeful. Meaningless and meaningful. And the last one is breakdown and breakthrough. So I invite you to just sit with those. Just feel them. Feel them in your body. If you're multitasking, I know that's not easy, but if you happen to be able to sit quietly and just feel those, I invite you to hold those in your awareness. When I first felt that disturbance in the force, I was trying to make sense of these feelings that I was having, and a part of me was interpreting it through the events in my personal life. So in other words, I thought, well, I guess I'm feeling this because, whatever reason, like a certain situation didn't work out the way I had planned, or gosh, I read that news article and it was so disturbing, or, whatever it was like the mind was trying to rationalize the feelings and trying to fit it into a personal context. So I could understand why I was experiencing this disturbance on the inner planes. And it does make sense in many ways to assign the feelings to personal events. But then I realized, wait a minute, it didn't add up. It was like something didn't fit here. And I realized, wait a minute, this isn't personal. This is collective. And I had this aha moment, and I snapped right out of it because I could see the bigger picture, and I was able to witness those states of mind, those emotions very clearly. I was able to step back with more of an objective observer to what this energy was, what these states were that were passing through me. And then over the following days and weeks, I was talking with various friends, and I became aware that many of them were experiencing the same thing or something similar. And they were really deep into feeling disheartened and disconsolate and hopeless and so forth, all those negative qualities. And some of them were thinking it was because of the news, like about the wars or the crazy politics of our world. Or, some people were having major changes in their personal life. And so it was all these different ways those feelings were being attributed. And so I asked them if they could name the opposites of those feelings of disheartened and disconsolate, hopeless, purposeless, meaningless. And when they did, just like I did, they felt a shift. And I think that's usually the easiest way to experience a shift out of the negative state. It's just naming the opposite side. If you've been around CORELIGHT for a while, you know about this. But if you're new to CORELIGHT, that's really the first step, I think, in what we call one of our basic practices, which is the polarity practice. It's outlined in the book Leslie and I wrote called The Marriage of Spirit. And that's available anywhere online, bookstores, CORELIGHT.org, The Marriage of Spirit. I refer to it a lot because so much of what we talk about is referenced in that book. But I also pointed out to these people I was talking to how important it is not to take these states personally, right? Because, as I said, it's a collective shift that's happening. And so it's really, really helpful in those moments to remember that we're not alone. We're not separate, but that our thoughts and emotions are shared. And so the mind does try to rationalize the feelings and fit them into a personal context. And so if you might be feeling something similar, I invite you to do the same. Look inwardly to see if you also might be feeling collective energy, not necessarily personal energy. And if this is new to you, you might not be able to know, but if you've been on the path for a while, you're probably pretty attuned and you'll be able to feel it. But it's a practice. This is something we learn over time as we become more sensitive. I just think it's important to remember that when we're feeling these difficult states, like I was mentioning, like hopelessness especially, and meaninglessness, those are very deep at the bottom of the pit, helplessness, stuff like that. There are plenty of reasons we might feel this way, like, just the fact that we're aware of these wars that are going on and all the various systems falling apart in the world, or, the big changes in our personal lives and so forth. But we're also attuned to the collective consciousness all the time, whether we're aware of it or not. We share the thoughts and emotions, our thoughts and emotions, with the rest of the world. So I shared this perspective with these various people in my life, and I told them about my experience of feeling this, what I called a disturbance in the force, and I reminded them that what they're feeling probably isn't necessarily because of the events in their personal life or because of the news stories they're taking in. I just reminded them to witness the thoughts and emotions and to not take it personally and to not make it so real. And when I said that and they practiced that, they each experienced a shift in their consciousness to some degree. And so if you're new to what we're talking about, when I say the witness, I'm talking about that part of us that is the objective observer of life. It's that part of us that watches ourselves doing the personality. It observes our thoughts and emotions from a more objective place. It's that part of us that knows that we're not our thoughts and emotions. The witness knows that we are pure awareness, and the thoughts and emotions are just passing through us. So it's that part of us that's awake. It's that part of us that's aware of who we truly are. And we are the soul. We are vast and timeless and eternal. And so I don't want to talk too much about this. I don't want to talk too much about witnessing because honestly, I talk about it so much in these calls and I feel like I'm boring most of you when I go on about it all the time. So forgive me. But I suppose we all need reminders, don't we? I mean, if you're new and you want more information about witnessing and how to practice it, Leslie and I wrote a whole chapter about it in the book I said before, The Marriage of Spirit book. So let's move on. So not making the disheartening, disconsolate, and hopeless feelings so real. Not taking them personally. And realizing that so much of what we experience is collective. these awarenesses that I'm describing are really important to help us get through the challenging times. And another thing is remembering, this really helps me, is remembering this too shall pass. That's very helpful. None of this stuff lasts forever. But I know when we're in it, a part of us thinks it is going to last forever. I know it really sucks when we're in that place, and I bet you plenty of you listening are in a difficult space, it's going around, so to speak. But just remembering that little phrase, this too shall pass, it does help us to get more in the witness mode, and it lets it pass through more quickly. And there's another helpful reminder. If you're in the soup of difficult emotions, it's that where the shadow is the darkest and the thickest, the light is right on the other side of it. So it's literally like we have to pass through the wall of the shadow before we can pop into the light. And sometimes it's just like that. Sometimes it's so sudden. It's just like, bam, it's done, and you're through the shadow. I've had that experience many times. So when we're dealing with thoughts and emotions in collective consciousness, and it feels very personal, it's also helpful to remember that what we're actually doing is we're each siphoning off what we're able to from the collective consciousness. We personally take through our bodies the degree of shadow that we're capable of taking, and we transmute that shadow into light. So the more that you do this kind of training that we're talking about, the more shadow work you do, the more personal clearing work you do, the more energy that you can take through you. So in other words, the more you do the inner clearing work and the more you practice the witnessing, the clearer you become inside, the clearer a vessel you become. And so then the greater gift that you can give the earth. You're giving your capacity to transmute shadow and to hold more light in your body. That's our gift that we give. All right. So just, I want to come back to the disturbance in the forest thing and just share a little bit more about what that was. As I talk about on these calls sometimes, and as I know many of you know, the human collective is at this pivot point between the two ages. So we're shifting out of the age of patriarchy or the age of separation, whichever you want to call it, and it's lasted about 6,000 years or so. And so we're moving into a new age, what we call the paradigm of the heart. And that shift in human consciousness is basically, if you want to describe it really succinctly, it's essentially the shift from the love of power into the power of love. And so we're in this incredibly pivotal time. And because of that, the shadow of the patriarchy is at its darkest. And it's also a time when the light is the brightest. I mean, the forces of light and dark are always dancing with each other. I know you know that. That's what defines life on planet Earth, the dance of light and dark. The pairs of opposites, they're always flip-flopping. But we're right in a time right now where this dance of light and dark is becoming very intense. In case you haven't noticed. And I know I feel like I say this a lot because it's been going on for so long, but there is this acceleration. And in fact, the dance now just honestly feels more like a war, and it's reaching this crescendo. I would imagine if you're listening to this podcast, you probably know exactly what I'm talking about. The level of power games and corruption and greed and lies and warmongering and, on and on. What's happening on our planet is off the charts. And also, before I say any more, I just want to be clear. I'm not talking about any one political party. I never do. I'm not talking about one political leader or one country. I never do. This is planetary. This is worldwide. It's across the board. There's no one person or party or country that has a monopoly on the shadow. The shadow is arising everywhere. It's like every country has its own flavor of shadow arising, but there's nowhere you can go to be spared from that. And for those of us who are sensitive, it's just hard, It's just just hard to watch this play out, isn't it? Oh my goodness. If you have any degree of empathy or sensitivity, it's just an incredibly painful time right now. And that's why I read all those quotes about truth at the beginning of the call. Even though the forces of separation, you could call them, are desperately trying to manipulate and obfuscate and lie and cheat, the truth always prevails in the end. It's like that Gandhi quote. It just does. It's just that until it does, it's so hard to watch, the suffering and the courageous voices for truth that are being censored and suppressed, and and the truth can't be suppressed forever. Anything that's built on lies and corruption and violence fails eventually. It implodes from within. And that's what's happening right now. The truth is starting to come out more and more and more. And so I guess occasionally there are these disturbances in the force, like I was describing. I've had them before. They're kind of few and far between, but they do happen. And I feel like with each one, there's a shift in the tectonic plates deep in the collective consciousness that each time brings us closer to the tipping point, right? To the movement into the new paradigm of the heart. There's an acceleration of it. It's a quickening. It's a quickening that's happening with each of those shifts. And we just went through a big one. It was just a big one. It's a super challenging time in so many ways, but also it's an extraordinarily beautiful time as well. It's like I said, it was both sides of the polarity that I felt. It was not just the negative, it's the positive side as well as the negative. So I want to read the positive side to you again, and I invite you to just feel this part in your body as well, which I find very helpful. Inspired, uplifted, hopeful, purposeful, meaningful, breakthrough. So with this quickening that's happening, the opportunity for our spiritual evolution is unprecedented. Even though it might not look like it from the outer appearance of the world, especially if you're taking in the corporate controlled news, love and truth are starting to shine through. And they always prevail in the end. And I guess I could just mention a couple of examples that have happened since we last talked. Just recently, Julian Assange was freed. And I guess that's a real cause for celebration. It's like a ray of light in the darkness. If you don't know who he is, he's the journalist who started WikiLeaks a long time ago, and he got into trouble with the world governments by exposing leaked information about war crimes that were committed by the U.S. government. And so he had to run and hide. He was stuck in the Ecuadorian embassy in London for 7 years, where he had political asylum, and then he got arrested, and he was put in a maximum security prison in the UK for 5 years. So it's been 12 years that he's essentially been incarcerated, and the fact that he's been released after that time is a big deal. I mean, it's truly a victory on one level, but it's also really bad news for journalism. It's a defeat for journalism, because he had to plead guilty to a crime to get out. But essentially, his crime was doing his job of journalism, which is about the search for truth and exposing the lies and the corruption and holding authorities accountable. So this is a mixed blessing, but it's still a very good sign in some ways. And on previous calls, we've prayed for him, and I know that that's helpful, and I'm sure he continues to need our prayers. So if you feel inclined to do that, I invite you to do that. He's fresh out of prison and probably needs a long time to heal. So anyway, I wanted to mention that just because it does feel like a ray of light in the darkness. Felt important to mention. Another example of the light shining through the darkness is that I keep reading that the alternative media, quote unquote, is increasingly viewed by many, many times more people than the corporate controlled media, because people they've just stopped believing most of the lies that we're told, the propaganda. So I think that's a really good sign that, the world is waking up. We're seeing this breakthrough happening. It's not just a breakdown. And I have to say, I think before we incarnated in these bodies this time around, we always knew this was going to be really hard. We also knew that we had what it takes to get through it and come out the other side. We had the courage, we had the strength, we have the spiritual evolution, and we are getting through it, and we will get through it. It's humanity's destiny to evolve in consciousness and to live in the heart, to live in love, to experience love in the world, to know ourselves as love. This is our birthright. This is where we're going. And there's so much support on the inner planes for this shift. The benevolent beings who guide our planet really want to see us evolve and grow and succeed in manifesting this shift. So we're met more than halfway with all of our efforts, our heroic, courageous efforts. And that support from the inner planes is what we call grace. It's a gift. It's a gift from the unfathomable intelligence of the divine. And it's a great practice to look for that and to feel it and receive it. And this is something we can all practice personally. And so I'm wondering if you do that. I wonder if you practice receiving grace and feeling it, acknowledging it. If you don't, I invite you to try it. I think I'd like to share my practice with you. I have a daily practice that I do just in case it's helpful. Every morning, I take a few moments to close my eyes and get quiet and go inward. And among other things, I invite the grace of my spiritual guides or grace of Great Spirit into my life. And I ask to be given that support of that grace in whatever way I need it. It might be different each day, but I invite it in. And that always includes asking for grace in becoming an instrument of peace and love and joy in the world. And then throughout the day, I practice paying attention and just trying to be aware of when I'm receiving that support of grace. And then whenever I feel it, I just stop and just give thanks. I just feel a sense of gratitude. I acknowledge it and just say thank you for the grace. So if you're not already doing something like that, I invite you to try it as a daily practice, maybe for the next month until the next Spiritual Weather Report call. See if that's helpful for you. I think you'll enjoy it. I know it's very helpful for me. So maybe you'll share with me. Let me know how it goes for you. You know, since our topic is truth and love, there's another thing we can all do personally as a practice, and that is to make a commitment to truth and love in our own life. And if you've already done that, then another thing you can do is to consider recommitting to truth and love. And the recommitment can also be a daily practice along with the calling in of grace. Just in that moment where you're calling in grace, you can, after you invite grace into your life, you can just add a little inner recommitment to truth and to love. And it's as simple as that. So please let me know if you give that a try. I'd love to hear about your experiences. All right, let's move on to our next topic, which is discernment and avoiding distractions. So discernment is one of the key practices that we can each do personally to align with truth and to not fall prey to the manipulation and the lies and especially to distractions. So as I'm sure you already know, and as I frequently point out on these calls, the forces of separation are increasingly inviting us into polarization and fear and division. And this actively works against our movement into greater connection and into unity and into love. And so one of the key practices around this is developing discernment. And I spoke about this at length, about the practice of discernment on a Spiritual Weather Report call about a year ago. It was April 2023. And so I don't want to repeat all that now because the recording is there. It's available on our free resources page at CORELIGHT.org. Again, it's April 2023, and the title of it is Censorship and Discernment. So if you're interested on the subject, then you can go to the free resources page and find that. But for now, I think I'd just like to summarize a little bit of what I said on that call. Discernment is essentially a kind of a wisdom or insight. It's an inner knowing. It's an ability to see into the true nature of things. It comes from different places. It can come from experience, or it can come from our intuition, or it can come as a gift from Spirit, from grace. Our ability to discern develops along with the inner clearing work and our spiritual maturity. And so I think that's why discernment is one of the key abilities that we're developing as a species. Discernment is a critical aspect of the great awakening that's happening on the earth right now, because one of the hallmarks of the old paradigm of separation that humanity is moving out of is projecting our power onto an outside authority. And that's when we need somebody else to tell us what to do and to tell us what's true and what's not true and what to believe and what not to believe and so forth. And that's just old, that's just unhealthy and irresponsible. It's part of the victim, tyrant, savior cycle, or the victim, tyrant, savior consciousness that we talk about a lot on these calls. So if we're feeling powerless and subservient, then we know we've projected our own power outside of us, and we're blaming a tyrant, and we're looking for a savior or a rescuer to come and help us. So instead of being limited by that, by the victim, tyrant, savior consciousness, it's time for us to take back our power and our authority and to practice discernment and critical thinking so that we can make our own decisions based on our own inner knowing. And one of the keys to this practice of discernment is avoiding getting distracted. And I think that's really one of the main things I wanted to talk about today, is avoiding getting distracted. We're constantly being instructed, especially by the media, to not look at certain elephants in the room. The bigger issues that really matter, like the perpetration of endless war and the ever-increasing gap between the rich and the poor, and the slow creep into totalitarianism. And these are just to name a few examples. There are plenty more. But we're constantly being invited to pay attention to other things that dominate the headlines. Like think of anything that's clearly designed to get you emotionally riled up, like, being outraged or being scared or whatever. Because the more emotional we are, the more the critical thinking part of the brain shuts down. That's just how the physiology works. And then when that happens, the more easily manipulated we are. So anything that's designed to get us enraged or scared are generally distractions so that we don't focus on the elephant in the room, which is really about the forces of separation inviting us into being afraid and distracted in the first place. So if we start asking why that's happening and we start looking for the man behind the curtain, the game's over. It's like the Wizard of Oz, right? Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. And who is that? Who is the man behind the curtain? I suppose there might be some physical people behind a curtain somewhere, pulling a bunch of levers, pressing the knobs, but one of the most empowering ways that I've found to look at this is to pull that curtain back on our own psyche and to practice the introspection. Because I find doing the inner work is the key, because the antidote to all of this is our own spiritual awakening. And as we awaken spiritually, we develop discernment. We improve our intuition. We improve our critical thinking skills. We get better at not getting distracted. By doing the inner clearing work, it becomes easier and easier to choose love over fear, to choose connection over separation. I also just want to be clear, I'm not saying that it's not important to stop the guy behind the curtain. Whoever's perpetrating endless war and promoting totalitarianism and all this stuff, that's got to stop. And, sometimes we do need to take physical action, like, going out and protesting or doing whatever we feel is ours to do. Taking physical action is important. But I'm just pointing out that one of the most empowering things we can do right now is to focus on our own self-healing, our own self-empowerment. And as I always say on these calls, that's because the greatest gift that we can give the world is our spiritual awakening. Okay, so I feel like that's complete for now. So let's shift gears and let's focus on our final topic for today. What if your job were to live in joy? I was so happy this came up. I love this subject. I've asked this question of myself so much in the past many years. And the answer that I come to over and over again is that living in joy and radiating joy is actually my only job. So I invite you to ask yourself the same question, see what you get, and let me know. I'd like to hear. And I know I talk about joy a lot on these podcasts, and that's because, in these times of such massive change, I think it's an important reminder. It can be so challenging to hold on to our joy with all the suffering that's happening in the world and with all the challenges in our personal lives and so forth. And I don't want to minimize any of that. I mean, I know that joy just is not possible when there's a level of extreme suffering or challenge of some kind. So if you're in that situation, then it's important that you just be with what's happening for you and that you're true to whatever you're experiencing and feeling. But I guess, what's happening for me and what happened for me is a bit different, I think, because I went through a really, really long period of grieving the loss of Leslie, my beloved of 25, 30 years now. I spent several years grieving, and there were especially 2 years of very, very intense grief. And some of those days, I just cried mostly. I just had to allow my body, I had to give my body its due. I had to just let myself feel whatever I needed to feel for as long as the body wanted to. And it was helpful, to allow that and to just let that be what it was, without judgment, without trying to force anything else on myself, but just allowing the emotions to move and to be. If I needed to cry all day, I would just let myself do that. Sometimes I was dancing, sometimes I would dance and sing around the apartment, but it was just whatever it needed to be, and that was an important time for me. But I want to say also it was really helpful at that time to have a creative outlet as well. For me, my creative outlet was writing. Every day I would sit down and write Leslie's and my stories. And I would just pour my heart out on the page, remembering our life together. And there was no order to it. It was like popcorn. I would just let one story arise. I'd write it down, and then the next day something else. And that was incredibly healing. And in the end, it became the book that I wrote is called Living with Enlightenment: A Journey of Love. And I realize now that allowing that creative energy to move through the body, it helps the emotions and the energy to move through. So if you're in grief or if you're in any kind of intense emotion, I highly recommend finding some kind of creative outlet to support you, whatever that looks like for you. For some people, it might be painting or dancing or singing or, drawing, whatever that is for you. Anyway, at some point I realized that I felt like I'd gotten over kind of a hump of grief. And ever since then, I've found this new level of joy in my life that's there all the time. And it's kind of, I find it strange how that works. I didn't know that was how it works, but I do know there's a saying, and I know the truth of it, and the saying is that you can only go as high as you're willing to go low. And I think I bottomed out the basement of grief and loss. And so as a result of that, I got to access a whole new top floor of my building. So anyway, I think the truth is that the highest outpicturing of our spiritual journey is joy. You know, it's the highest vibration that we can hold is joy. So it's definitely worthy of our reminders and our focus, and it's a great gift to ourselves and to others if we can hold that state. I decided many years ago, after I came out of that intense period of grief, that joy was my new north, is how I called it. And so now I let joy guide me wherever I need to go. And if I'm facing a decision, I weigh it against my heart. And if I feel it's going to bring me joy, then it's a yes. And otherwise, it's a no. I guess I also want to be clear. It's a great topic, but it's also a little bit fraught. So forgive me. I just need to keep talking about it a bit. I want to be clear. I'm not talking about spiritual bypassing. This is not about avoiding or denying or suppressing emotions. So when I feel things like pain or grief or anger or fear or sadness or whatever it is, and I still do, especially the grief will still come up from time to time, not like it did in the past, but sometimes, a wave of grief will pass through. I allow those emotions to flow through. I practice witnessing them, moving through, but then when they pass through, I remind myself to just move back into joy. And that works really well for me. I've also heard a new term. People are calling it toxic positivity. I don't know if you've heard that, but that's, I guess, where you feel pressure to be positive all the time. And, that you avoid the negative at all costs. If you've ever tried that, it's not really possible. It does not work to pretend that you're always positive and happy. That's just similar to the spiritual bypassing where, we think it's not spiritual to feel certain emotions, so we pretend we're not feeling them. And that's a lot, the metaphor I see when I think of that is it's like trying to hold a beach ball under the water for a long time. And that never works, right? Because the beach ball is always trying to push back and trying to find a way to come back up to the surface. And we just get distracted and boom, the beach ball's up and hitting us in the face. So it's like, somebody who might suppress anger all the time, and then occasionally they just blow up in a rage and it seems very out of proportion. And all the suppressed anger comes pouring out all at once, maybe over something little, That's how that works. So no, the practice of joy, and what I mean by making joy my job is very different. I think the difference between what I'm talking about and this spiritual bypassing or toxic positivity, whatever you want to call it, it's in the practice of witnessing. Because witnessing is where you practice allowing all the emotions and all the thoughts to pass through you, and you remember that you're not those things. You're not the emotions. You're not the thoughts. You remember you are pure awareness. You're pure consciousness. So you experience the thoughts, the emotions passing through you, and then you let them go. So it's like an emptying of your bucket rather than continuing to fill it up. And so much of this is about spiritual detachment. Spiritual detachment is about observing objectively, right? Whatever's happening in your life. And I know sometimes people confuse spiritual detachment with things like indifference or withdrawal or aloofness or closing the heart even. And that's not what spiritual detachment is at all. Those things are like taking a step back from something. But spiritual detachment is more like taking a step towards something and keeping your heart open as well. And I think another good way of describing it, some people call it engaged detachment. And I like that. And another related quality to the witnessing is surrender. And that's about practicing being okay with whatever is. So it's great to talk about all this, but how do we do it? How do we hold on to our joy in these extraordinary times where there's such great change and great challenges? So it's all the practices that I'm mentioning, especially witnessing. They're all super important. And I think also, maybe the simplest thing is just being aware that joy is our job, you know? I mean, that's a good start to just name it. And so much of it's just about remembering that. Remembering to remember. And I know that's easier said than done. So some of the tricks are, putting sticky notes up around the house with joy written on them, or around in your car and in the office or wherever. Just remind yourself. I even thought once about getting the word joy tattooed on my forearm. I didn't do it, but I'm still thinking about it. I also think so much of remaining joyful is about seeing a bigger picture. Taking a helicopter view of where we are at on the collective human journey in consciousness. So when we're faced with intense shadow rising up in the world, the wars, the corrupt politics, the greed, inequality, destruction of the natural world, and on and on and on. The list is a long one, as you know. I think it's critical to remember that the shadow has to finish playing itself out on the world stage so that we can really see it completely in all its horror, in all its glory, in the mess that it is. It's like it has to complete. It reminds me, it's like a scary, like a horror movie that is not quite over. It has to finish the final scene in order for it to end, to get it behind you so you can leave the theater. So we have to be able to see the shadow for what it really is. We've got to be able to shine a light on the shadow fully. And when we do, that's when it's no longer a shadow. If you've shown the light on the full shadow. But as long as there are hidden pieces of the shadow that haven't yet been seen, it's not going to end. All these unconscious aspects of the human psyche, all these little dark corners, they are being magnified. They're just being brought out into the light. They need to be made conscious. They need to become visible before we can be done with them and then let them go. And I know it just sucks, it's just no fun. And in fact, it's just the most painful and awful thing. But honestly, this is how our evolution in consciousness works. And if you're still listening to this podcast, I'm sure you're aware of that. I'm sure you know about that. It just doesn't always have to be so painful. It can be fun. This is part of the holding of the joy. So I just think, we still have a few more scenes in the movie to play to play out, but it's really getting close to the end of the movie. I wonder if you're feeling what I'm feeling. It's like we're at this this crescendo. I think in terms of a script. It's called the denouement. I think we're at that crescendo. The decade of the 2020s is the crescendo of this great turning of the ages. So we've still got a few more years to go, but the tipping point is very, very close. So I just find it very helpful to remember this bigger picture, that we're at this denouement, or this crescendo of the most massive shift imaginable in the greatest script of all time. It's the many millennia long cycle ending and a new one beginning. And so here we are in these bodies, incarnated just for this experience. We came for the show of the millennia. We came to do our part to help close out on this old system that I would expect many, at most everybody who's listening to this has had many, 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 many lifetimes. We are at the end of a very, very, very long journey. And we came here to do our part, to close out on this old system and to help midwife the birth of the new paradigm of the heart. And it's just an extraordinary time. It's so exciting and amazing and like horrible, and it's all of it. And the greatest contribution we can make is to hold a high vibration. The more we can do that, the more we can hold a high vibration, then the faster and the smoother the shift is going to be. So holding states like joy and love and peace, these are the highest vibrations. So that's the best gift we can give. And that's why I think this theme came through today about joy. So we could talk about this. It's the antidote to these dark times. And so I want to close by asking you the question. Do you feel it's your job to live in joy? And it may be, it may not be. And if so, if it's not, then that's okay too. Maybe, like I said, maybe you need to go through an intense grieving phase like I did, or maybe you're coping, I don't know, with some other kind of challenging situation that prevents you from experiencing joy. And if that's the case for you, then I invite you to just practice being okay with whatever's happening for you. I know whenever we're in pain, it's just hard, and so I really honor you for whatever you're going through. And I hope for you that one day, whatever you're going through shifts like it did for me, and that you can move more into the joy. And if you got a yes on the question, then I'm so happy for you. And I honor you as well. I heard somebody say the other day that he felt like it was our duty to be optimistic about these times we're living in. He said he felt like the tactics of the oppressors, which are about fear-mongering and dividing people, like we talked about, they're so old and they're so worn out from overuse that they've become completely transparent for anybody with eyes to see. And I totally agree with him. I remember my grandmother, I've shared this with you before, my grandmother used to say, in the end, everything works out okay. And if it's not okay, then it's not the end. And I saw online that that's also attributed to John Lennon and a few other people, so who knows who said it. But my grandmother definitely said it. I heard her say it. Anyway, let's just to wrap up here, to come full circle on our conversation today. I think so many people are waking up to the power of truth and love. And so many people know how to discern truth and not get distracted by this constant invitation into fear and separation, that we are very, very quickly approaching the tipping point. So, like I spoke about earlier in the call, there's this quickening. And the tectonic plates are shifting very deep in the collective human consciousness. So, on the inner planes, we are all poised and ready for whatever's coming. It's both an exposure of the shadow, and it's also a shift into the heart. Both those things are happening simultaneously. And I feel like we really need to remember that, especially when it gets challenging and we start to see shadow aspects arising. So it's humanity's destiny to move into a new paradigm of the heart. And that begins inside each of us. And we can live that right now. We can have it in our own personal reality. We can live it right now by choosing love over fear and choosing connection over separation, and also making it our job to live in joy, if that's possible for you. Okay. All right. Thank you, everybody. That's the end of our discussion for today. I hope it's helpful. And I think it's time to move into the questions. So I want to thank you all so much for all the questions and the sharing that you send me. I really, really love hearing from you. In case you're new, the way this works is you can email any questions or sharing in advance of the calls to courses@corelight.org, or my personal email address is brad@corelight.org. You can just send to me directly if you like, but it's not always possible for me to answer all the questions, but I do read them all, and I do get to as many of them as I can. And if the question doesn't get answered by me, the answer always comes from somewhere. It's either from another teacher or a book or, a dream or an insight in meditation or somehow somebody shows you get a sign of some kind. I'm sure you know that. Okay, so the first question is from Claudia. And she says, what actions ease social crisis and anger between neighbors, fostering understanding and harmony during times of profound change? So thank you, Claudia, for your excellent question. When you say easing social crisis and anger between neighbors, the first thing that comes to my mind is that I think you might be referring to war. And since war is, such an important topic for our times, I'm going to approach your question that way in terms of, what actions might help ameliorate the war energy in the world or within us. So first of all, I would say the main thing is that the desire for peace is critical. People have to really want peace in order for conflicts and war to end. I've had a personal experience of this. I've shared it on a recent call, so I don't think I'll repeat it right now, but it was basically, the upshot of it was that when Leslie and I built our house in South Africa, we moved into a neighborhood where there was a great conflict between factions of the neighborhood. And we tried so hard. I tried so hard. She did too, but I tried so hard to create peace. And long story short is I spent countless hours and days and weeks and months and even years trying, and it failed my efforts to create help create peace failed miserably. And I asked her, I was so distraught by that experience, and I asked Leslie, what do you think this is about? Why is this such a failure, and why is there no peace? She said, oh, because they're having so much fun fighting. They're having way too much fun fighting. There will never be peace unless people really, really want peace. And in fact, the more we looked at it and processed, the energy of what was going on in the neighborhood, we saw that it was a very old war of different groups within South Africa who have they fought wars before. And so the descendants, it's ancestral karma, basically. The descendants of those people in the war were still fighting with each other. And, the side that lost was still trying to win, and the side that won was still trying to, make things work, and it was just a mess. So anyway, I share that with you just to illustrate, there's so many different energies at work, and until the shadow pieces have been played out and looked at and healed, and then out of that comes the true desire for peace. That's when peace becomes possible. But it's like we were talking about earlier on the call, it's got to be played out. It can't be completed unless it finishes playing itself out, and all those unconscious shadow pieces rise to the surface for review and have the light shined on them and be made conscious, and then they're not shadow pieces anymore. And that's when peace can prevail. The process of peace can begin, let's say. So I think, given that, the other thing I can share with you in answer to your question is that the process of this peace, it begins with tolerance. That's the first step. We start with tolerance, and then we can move, the next step might be into respect. And then there's another step into maybe compassion or empathy. And then eventually, with enough work, you move into love. And ultimately, ultimately, the end goal is to find forgiveness. Forgiveness is the ultimate. When we've found true forgiveness, that's when true peace happens. It's unconditional love, essentially. So, well, actually, let's say, I take that back. Unconditional love would come after the forgiveness. We do the forgiveness for ourselves. We're not saying, if there was some horrible perpetrator that had done something, that we're letting them off the hook, for a crime. But I'm saying that ultimately we do the forgiveness for ourselves so that we can move on and we can heal and let go. So as far as what actions we can take along that particular path, I think it's about doing anything that fosters what I just described. So, from desiring peace to having tolerance and respect and so on. And the two actions that are at the top of the list for me personally are, number one, meditation, and number two, doing the clearing work, the egoic clearing work that we keep talking about, the shadow work, whatever you want to call it. And by that I mean, like what I talk about on these podcasts all the time. It's what Leslie and I teach. It's what CORELIGHT offers, especially in our book, The Marriage of Spirit. And so we offer our way, but there's so many methods out there nowadays, so many teachers offering different methods, so many paths for clearing the shadow and moving into healing. So everybody, like what we recommend is, You can try ours, and if it doesn't work for you, just find somebody else. Find some method that works for you. You just need to find something. Find whatever works best for you and do that. But really the key is that everybody at this stage of the game needs to be doing some form of shadow clearing work, some kind of inner healing work. So going within to clear our own war energy that's inside us is the key. And as long as we have war energy inside us, we're going to manifest that in the outer world. Therefore, we start with ourselves. That's the best place to begin. So, for example, if we're in an ongoing dispute with a neighbor or a family member, that's the perfect place to start looking inward to see what the shadow is that needs to be cleared inside of us. Right, and then after we found some degree of inner peace, usually the steps towards the outer peace reveal themselves. So sometimes it's total magic. It's like you don't have to even interact with the other person at all. I mean, that's truly when you've cleared something. You know, if you've done the inner clearing fully, completely. Sometimes the other person just magically changes their behavior towards you without you're having to say anything to them, or either that or they go away. You know, it's like that saying, "Don't go away angry, just go away," or something happens, you know, that you couldn't have expected to resolve the situation, and it's all because you worked on yourself. I've seen that for myself and for so many other people countless times. I bet you many of you have experienced that as well. And it does feel like a miracle when it happens. Okay, but just before I close out on your question, Claudia, I just want to offer one more comment about war. It feels important to mention this last piece about war, that war is part of the old paradigm, right? Part of the patriarchy. It's a hallmark of the system of separation. And I think very interestingly, in the previous era, which was a cycle of many thousands of years, like 10,000, there's not much evidence of war during that time. And this time was called the Neolithic era. It was a time of goddess worship and revering the feminine, revering the great Earth Mother, Gaia. If you've ever read any books about that time period, like, for example, The Chalice and the Blade is a great one by Rian Eisler, The Chalice and the Blade, you know that archaeologists just haven't found anything like, you know, there are no large scale fortifications. They're not like huge stashes of weapons anywhere. And at least that's in the area of what's now like Europe and North Africa and Asia. So it was generally a peaceful time as far as we know, and wars didn't really begin until the transition time into the patriarchal era, when the patriarchal tribes started migrating down from the south. They came out of the Russian steppes where the climate was very cold. And they had horses and they had, I believe, iron weapons. And so the peaceful Neolithic people didn't have horses or weapons. And so they had no way to defend themselves. And so it took a very long time, but like over, I think, a couple thousand years or so, eventually all those Neolithic people were taken over by the patriarchal tribes. They were the ones who worshipped the sky god, and they would kill the men, and they would take the women, the women and the daughters as concubines. And so eventually, it became a synthesis of the two groups, but with the cultural aspects were mostly from the patriarchal tribes. So anyway, so now as we finish up with the patriarchal cycle and we enter this new paradigm of the heart, there's going to be a balancing of the masculine and the feminine energies. And it's happening. It's not going to be, it is happening. We're doing it in ourselves. This is the work, right? We're all balancing masculine and feminine within. And when that enough of us do that, then we enter this new paradigm, and that's where the peace and the love and the harmony can play out, because we've done it inside us. Okay, I hope that's helpful. Thank you so much for your question, Claudia. I really appreciated that one. We're running out of time, so I'm just going to take one more question. I'm sorry. Maria writes, do you have any suggestions of squares I can do? If you are new to Corelight and you don't know what squares are, don't worry about it. They're in the Marriage of Spirit book. It's a super, super powerful but very simple way of creating a shift in consciousness. I'm not going to explain them right now. But Maria, I know you've been working on squares, and you were working on the martyrdom and savior archetypes, if I'm remembering correctly. So I bet you've done squares on savior victim and martyr tyrant. But if you haven't yet, those would be good ones. And just if you don't know about squares, all we're doing is naming polarities. It starts with a pair of polarities, and you're working with that. So we mentioned a whole bunch of polarities on the call today, and those would all be good to do. And so this would go for everybody, not just for Maria. So I've just made a list here. I'm going to mention some of the polarities that we've been talking about. We have war and peace, censorship and freedom of speech. And in fact, we did that square in the April 2023 call on censorship and discernment. So I found that to be super powerful. If you want to listen to the square on censorship and freedom of speech, you can go listen to the recording of the April 2023 Spiritual Weather Report. Another polarity that we talked about is truth and lies. Discernment and getting distracted or maybe getting manipulated might be the opposite. Disheartened and inspired. I've read this list before. I'm going to read it again. Disconsolate and uplifted. Hopeless and hopeful. Purposeless and purposeful. Meaningless and meaningful. Breakdown and breakthrough. And I know there are more that we talked about today, but hopefully the call today has inspired you to find whatever polarity might work for you. Not just you, Maria, but also anybody. This is such a great time to be doing squares. I'm finding myself doing them in my head a lot because they're so helpful. All right. I hope that's helpful. Thank you for your question, Maria. And again, I invite anybody to please send in any sharing, any questions for the next Spiritual Weather Report. It really helps me to hear from you. I read everything. I like to hear what you have to say, whatever's going on for you. It's helpful for me to, get a read on what's happening with everybody. So thank you. I thank you in advance for anything you care to share with me. All right, my friends, we're going to close out for today. So let's do our final little prayer/guided meditation. So I never know what it's going to be like. So I just invite you, if you're multitasking, this is a good time to stop just for a few moments. Pause. Sit down or lie down and close your eyes. And take a few moments to breathe deeply. Let's take some long, slow, deep breaths, breathing in the light and breathing out any shadow that might have gotten stirred up by our talking today. Breathing in joy. Breathing out any stress or worry. Breathing in peace. Breathing out any sense of anxiety. And as you continue to breathe and relax, I invite you to just slowly feel that warm wave of energy passing through your body, relaxing all your muscles, from head to toes and fingertips. Just letting it sweep away any tension you might be holding on to, any shadow that might have gotten stirred up. Putting your attention gently on the root chakra, allowing the root to open and to drop the grounding cord down into the earth and connect with the earth so you feel very grounded. Feeling your connection with Gaia. Our bodies are made of the earth. We are one with the earth. So feel that. Feel that groundedness. Feel that anchoring deep into the earth. Brings a great sense of stability and peace into the body. And I invite you now to put your attention on the heart chakra, which is right in the center of your chest. And you can tap it with your finger if you like. It's a few inches above the sternum. Just feel your heart center. You can visualize right inside the center of your chest a little ball of light, a little radiant miniature sun right in the center of your chest. Just feel it glowing brightly right there in the middle of your chest. And feel and visualize that it's radiating its light out, and the energy of it is love. It's like a wellspring within you of love. It's your source of love. And feel it bubbling up like a wellspring right in the center of your chest. And feel that beautiful glowing light expanding. What color is it? Is it golden white? Or silvery? Or maybe soft pink? Feel that beautiful energy of love bubbling up within your chest, radiating out and filling you up with this energy of love, filling your chest cavity. And then spreading out beyond the chest, outside the skin, out into your aura, filling you up with this glowing, beautiful light and the energy of love. And sometimes if you're really feeling the love, you might start getting a smile on your face. It's okay if you're not, but it's also a good indication that you're feeling the joy that comes from the love. And sometimes you can cheat. A great way to cheat is to just put a smile on your face anyway. And when you smile, you start to feel the joy and the love. It works in reverse. It's like they've proven, and scientists have proven, that when you smile, it's like you're telling the brain something happy is happening. And the brain says, oh, okay, we have to secrete the happy hormones now. And so your body gets flooded with joy because you smile, not the other way around. Usually it's that you feel joy and then you smile. So I invite you to try it the other way around right now. So if you're not feeling the love and the joy, just try putting a smile on your face and see what happens. And it's okay if this is not for you. I'm not forcing you into toxic positivity. If you're needing to feel the grief or the pain or whatever you're in, that's okay. But if you can manage a smile, see what happens. So I invite you to continue feeling that beautiful energy of love expanding beyond your chest, encompassing your whole body, your whole aura, filling you up completely from within with this beautiful, loving, joyful energy. Feeling yourself filling up from fingertips to toes, all the way out into your aura, above your head, below your feet, radiating this love and this joy energy. It's a beautiful feeling. Just stay with it. If you can, allow it to fill you up. It's amazing how it works. So while you continue to fill up with love and joy, I'm going to say a little prayer and a closing offering for our session today. So we call on Great Spirit. We invite in all of the highest guides and teachers and the beings who surround us in the highest love and support. And we give thanks for the gift of today. And again, if you're listening in the future, it doesn't matter, because at this level, at this field of love, there is no such thing as time and space. So we're literally all in this field of love together in present time right now. So we give great, great thanks for the opportunity to share our love, to be part of this field together. And we're taking this opportunity to make an offering of all the polarities that we've named today. We offer up the imbalances, and we call in our birthright, which is balance and peace and joy and love and all the higher states, wisdom, gratitude, generosity, all the ascended balance states. We call them all in. These are our birthright. We live from these states. And we ask for the support of grace, divine grace, to please come in and support us in this claiming of our birthright, of these high vibration states, especially joy. And we take this moment to send a prayer out for peace and an end to all war on the planet. And we ask, please make us instruments of your peace and your love and your joy. And wherever there's war energy, may we sow peace. And please also protect and inspire all those who are working for universal peace in our world. Please protect and give courage to all the whistleblowers, all the journalists, all the people who are fighting for truth, all the people who are in service and sharing their love with the world. all the people in government, all the people in positions of power. Please bless and protect and inspire everybody who's working for universal peace, especially each of us listening to this podcast today. And we send our blessings out to the whole of Mother Earth, to the rest, to humanity and the rest of the natural world. Peace and blessings to all. And may all of our thoughts and words and actions contribute to the happiness of all beings, even if in some small way. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We're so grateful for the gift of this time, the gift of the love, the gift of these beautiful, beautiful bodies that we get to wear for a few years on this exquisite blue planet at this extraordinary time of the great shift. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Alalahu. Isn't it wonderful? And now I invite you to slowly bring your awareness back into the room and into your body, and slowly begin to wiggle your fingers and toes, and when you're ready, open your eyes. All right. Thank you, everyone. I'm just so grateful to be here with you today. I love you, and I send you so many blessings. Thank you for all the participation, sharing your love. And I'll look forward to seeing you next month. Much, much love. Bye for now.